What's up, guys? Welcome to another video in our JavaScript course. Today we're going to be talking about strings. So this is a string in JavaScript here. I just found this image. So we have a variable const str for string, and then it is equal to I am a string in quotes. And that's basically what a string is. A string in JavaScript and pretty much every other programming language is just text, and it's put in between or wrapped in between quotes. Okay, so that's basically it. We're going to go over a bunch of different strings. We're going to write them out together, but just know again that a string is text and it's wrapped in quotes, and it can either be double quotes or single quotes. Okay, so that's like the basic fundamental knowledge that you need of a string and what they are. So we'll go ahead now and we'll write some strings out together, and I'll teach you a couple of other little nuances about them. So I'm going to go into the JavaScript course files that we've been working on, and I'm going to make a new file and call it 8-strings.html, and then I'm going to name our web page. I'll just name it JS strings, and then I'll make our script tags, and I'll write all of our strings and our script tags here. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to launch the page. There we go, we got JS string. So I'm going to right click and hit inspect and bring up our JavaScript console so that we can log some strings out to the console, okay? Alright, so let's get started here. So I have some notes that I took down if you want to go ahead and we'll go over them together, and you can copy them in your text editor if you want, so you can save it and go back to this lesson if you ever have questions about strings. And I just wrote, in JavaScript and most other programming languages, text and sentences are called strings. Strings are wrapped in either double, so two double quotes, or single quotes. And then just has a couple of examples. Const my string, this is my string in double quotes, and const my string, this is my string in single quotes. Okay? So if you want to pause the video and take that down, it'll probably help you remember, like the basics of strings a little bit better. So let's go ahead and write out a double quote string, and we'll log it to the console. So I'm going to make a comment, say double quote string, and then we'll do const my string equals, I'll say this is a string in double quotes, and then we can log that to the console. The console.log my string, and there it is. So there it is in the console. It does work. Okay. So now let's go below it and we'll write a single quote string, and we'll say const single quote equals, and we'll say single quotes, this is a single quote string, and then we'll log that to the console. Say console.log single quote. There it is. So this is a single quote string. So again, both work, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and give you a challenge. And I want you to create a string in either double or single quotes that is assigned to a variable named myGoal. Write a sentence that describes your #1 goal in life and log myGoal to the console. So go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to give you some time and try to do this on your own. And then if you have trouble, don't worry, because we'll do it together here in just a few seconds. Alright, so go ahead and give that a try. Alright guys, so hopefully that wasn't too difficult. I'm going to go ahead and do this with you. So I'll say const myGoal, and I'll say my #1 goal in life is to provide for my family. Okay? and then I'll log it to the console, like console.log, and put out my goal. And there it is. So I chose to do double quotes, but again, this would also work in single quotes. Okay? So if you had trouble with that, go ahead and pause the video again, and then just go over, copy my syntax and write out your goal and log it, okay? Otherwise, we can go ahead and move on. So the next thing we want to talk about is escaping characters in strings. So what does that mean? So I got some notes prepared here. That, again, you can copy down if you want, but so escaping characters refers to escaping or making your string work when you put punctuation in your strings, such as apostrophes or quotes, like a quote in your string. So my notes here, so sometimes you'll need to write strings in JavaScript that contain quotes and or apostrophes in the text, which can break your code. You can get around this by using double quotes for strings that use apostrophes or single quotes for text that uses quotation marks. You can also escape characters. Oops, got that twice. Sorry about that. You can also escape characters using the backslash. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of examples to show you what I mean here. So I'm going to make a comment, and I'm going to say escaping apostrophes. And then I'm going to say let apostrophe equals, and then I'm going to put double quotes for the string, and I'm going to put it's with an apostrophe, a beautiful day. And we will log that to the console. Alright, so it's a beautiful day, so it worked fine. We have, remember, strings in JavaScript look for quotes to know where strings stop and start. So if we didn't use double quotes here, this JavaScript string would get confused. So let me just show you. We'll use single quotes here instead of double. And now it thinks that this string starts at I and ends after T, because we just have single quotes everywhere. So see that, and you also know that it's broken because we get that little squiggly line if you're using Visual Studio Code that we're all familiar with. So I'll try to save that, and look what happens. Uncaught syntax error, unexpected identifier S. So it's like after the T and from the S on, we have no idea what you're talking about. So that's why in this case we would need to use double quotes, or it's one thing that we could do to get around that. Okay, so that's escaping apostrophes. So let me actually let me copy that, and we'll just comment it out, but save it there, that example there, just for your notes. Okay, so we'll just comment that out. Just want to, like, if you go back, you can remember, like, oh yeah, that's why we did that. So let's go down here now, and we'll say another comment, and we'll say escaping a quote. Alright, so I'm going to say, I'll make a variable called quote, so I'll say let quote equals, and then I'll make it say Patrick Henry famously said, comma, and then quotes. And remember, this is a quote, so we actually need to do this in single quotes so that our quote won't break our code. See, even I make mistakes sometimes. So Patrick Henry famously said, and now we can put his quote, so quotes in here. He said, give me liberty, or give me death. So famous American quote there. Oops. And we'll put a period there. And we can log that out, so we'll say console.log quote. And there it is. Patrick Henry famously said, give me liberty or give me death. And our quotes work again because we used single quotes, because if we would have wrapped this in double quotes, or if we would have tried to, it would have broken our line here. It would have stopped right here, right where the other quote is. So that's how you can escape quotes, by changing out, the quotes that you actually wrap your string in, single or double quotes. There's also another way you can do it, and that's by using the backslash. So we'll put escaping strings using, and we'll just put the backslash, and then I'll give you an example. So let me do, I'll say let backslash equals, and then we'll use that same, we'll use it's a beautiful day again. So let's say it's, but we're going to do it in single quotes, but it still won't break because we're going to use the backslash. So we'll say it's, so you go IT, and then you're about to make your apostrophe. Before it, you put the backslash. Then you can put your apostrophe and then your S. So it's a beautiful day. So let's console.log that, make sure it works. And it did. So that's how you use the backslash to escape strings, guys. You just put your backslash in front of the apostrophe or whatever punctuation you're about to use. And that'll just tell JavaScript, like, hey, this person's going to use punctuation, but don't break my string, pretty much, okay? So there's times you'll need to do that. And you can do this, like, whenever you want. If you always want to use either double or single quotes, that's just your habit, which mine is usually, I just use double quotes for most of my stuff by default. And I use this to escape strings when I have to, the backslash. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about another important concept in strings, and that's going to be called concatenation. So, I'll write that in the comment, concatenation. Or that's, all that means is joining strings together. Okay, it just means join strings together, add strings together. So I know it's a big fancy word, but don't let it scare you. It's just joining strings together. And to do that, we use the plus operator, just like math. So it's actually pretty straightforward if we've done math before, right? Like, we know that something plus something means you're adding them together. So that's pretty useful, because it makes it more so, your average person could pretty easily understand that, since it's just the plus symbol. Or I guess they call it the plus or addition operator. But let me show you how to do that now. So I'm going to make some variables, and then we'll log out a sentence in the console using them, and we'll concatenate them using the plus symbol. Okay. So I'll put let greeting, and we'll say hello, and we'll play let name equals Billy. And then we'll say let job equals, I'll say web developer. Okay. Now we're going to log out a sentence to the console using concatenation and adding these variables and other pieces of just regular string text together. Okay. So we'll say console.log, and we'll say greeting. And then we'll say plus name plus, and we'll add some string text. We'll say is a, and then plus, and then we'll say job. Okay, and we'll save. And if we look at our console here, it does log out our sentence. So it says, hello, Billy is a web developer. So it does log out the string text. However, there's a problem. And that's that we don't have our spaces, right? It's just kind of all jumbled up together. So I'm going to show you how to do it now, the correct way, adding spaces. And it's just like an extra step. So you say console.log, and we'll try this again. We'll say greeting. And then to add a space, I'm going to put the plus operator, and then an empty string with a space in it, and then plus name. And then plus, empty string, space, plus, and I'll make our more string text, is a, and then plus operator, empty string, space, and then plus, and job. and we'll save that. And now we have our spaces here. So hello, Billy is a web developer. Now that looks a lot better. So that's one way to add spaces. And again, that's just after like a variable or whatever text you want. When you want a space, you make the plus symbol, an empty string with a space, and then you can keep going, plus whatever else you want to write. So that's one way to do it. There's also another way to do it with like a little bit less code. And we'll do that now. So we'll say console.log, and we'll say greeting, and we'll say plus. And for this part, we still need to use our empty string with a space, and we'll say name plus empty space with a string plus, and now we can write our other code. And actually, instead of using this plus with an empty space, we can put our space in the quotes. So we can say here is a, and that would still work. So plus, but since this next one is a variable, we have to use the empty space in the string again, and then say job. But it should still work. So like this right here, if you're just writing out text and not like concatenating a variable, you can just use that, okay? Just that little space. Yeah, we put a space in. Now if I get rid of that space and save, it's not going to work. So now Billy is right here is back together. It's not spaced, but we add our space back in. There we go. So I saved it and then it went back. So we'll do another example of that. So let's make some comments here. So we'll say above this one, say concatenating with empty strings. And that's what we did here. Let's do another example of just the spaces. So I'll say concatenating using spaces. Alright, so I'll make two more variables. I'll say let dog name, and I'll say my dog's name is Biscuit, and I'll say let dog years, and that's equal to 1. Just put a number 1, and then we'll concatenate this one using mainly spaces. Okay, so let's put console.log, and I'll put double quotes. I'll put my dog's name is, and then I'll put my space there. I'll say plus dog name. I'll say plus, and I'll put quotes again, and I'll put a period and then a space, and I'll say he is, and then another space, plus dog years, and I'll say plus again, quotes, and I'll say year old. Alright, so save that, log it to the console. And again, in this one, so we have our sentence, my dog's name is Biscuit, he is 1 year old. So that came out how I wanted it to. And we see here that I just used mainly, I didn't use a bunch of empty strings in this one, I just used spaces after quotes. And that worked too, okay? So I'm going to give you guys a challenge now. And I want you to make a sentence for me. And you can use any, you can use either the spaces or the empty strings. But I want you to try to make this sentence. And I'm going to add these variables here. So I've got a challenge. Is make a sentence with the variables below. The sentence, the sentence should say, and we'll put quotes here. The sentence should say, my favorite team is the AZ Diamondbacks. So you can put whatever, if you have like another favorite baseball team, you can insert whatever your team is. And they won 1 World Series, and we just have the number 1 in a variable here. So go ahead and try to, either using this or this, you can just use an empty. This is probably a little more easier for beginners, just always putting an empty string and a plus. This can be a little more confusing for sure. But any way you want to, go ahead and try to concatenate the sentence with these 2 variables in it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and give that a try, and then we'll do it together. Alright guys, so hopefully that wasn't too difficult. Let's go ahead and do it together. So I'm going to say console.log. And I'm going to start, say, my favorite team is the, and then I'm personally just going to use the empty space because I think it's a little easier to remember. So my favorite team is the, and then we'll put favorite team in here. Plus, and a period. Oops. And then we'll do a plus again, and a space, and a plus. And then I'll say they won. And then we'll say plus, empty string, plus, and then we'll put in our variable World Series wins, plus, empty string, plus, and then we'll finish off with World Series. Getting my quotes here, sorry about that. World Series, okay? Now we'll put a period. And there we go. So my favorite team is the AZ Diamondbacks. They won 1 World Series. Okay? So if that was super difficult, pause the video, go over this again, write out what I wrote out, and then make up another sentence for yourself. But you want to try to grasp this concept because you're going to be coming and working. You're going to be working with like strings a lot in JavaScript. So you want to make sure that you can do it. That you have this basic fundamental down. And I'm going to actually let you in on a little secret now. So the good news is if you're finding this stuff super difficult, which believe it or not, guys, when I first learned JavaScript, this really gave me fits. Like I had issues with this. I'm a slow learner. I'm not like a natural programmer. So like this really, just concatenation threw me off big time for some reason until, I don't know, it just finally clicked in my brain. Right? I think I had to go through like a couple different teachers before I like could learn it properly. So don't feel bad if this is all confusing, but I have some good news for you. And the good news that this is kind of like the old JavaScript way of doing concatenation and joining strings together, and you don't really want to use this way when you're writing new code of your own anymore. I'm going to show you a much cleaner and better way to do it using something called template literals or template strings. People call them both, and it's just like a way more cleaner way of doing this. But you want to have like a decent grasp of this older way of doing it, because you might be working on the older code bases someday, like older JavaScript and people use this type of concatenation, so you want to recognize what it is, okay? But so let's go over the new thing. So let's make a comment. We'll say concatenating using template literals, or also referred to as template strings. Okay? And this is going to be so much nicer, guys. Trust me, you're going to love this. So let's make a couple. We'll do 2 different ones. We'll make a set of variables and then we'll concatenate, okay? So I'll put down here, I'll put let first name, and we'll have some phones. So we'll say Johnny, and we'll say let last name, and we'll put that equal to Lawrence, and then we'll put let dojo, let dojo equals Cobra Kai. So if you guys watch Cobra Kai on Netflix, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then let's go ahead and log to the console a sentence using template strings. So check this out, guys. This is much better. So for template strings, you don't wrap in quotes. You actually wrap your sentences in backticks. That's what they're called, backticks. So these right here, these two little backticks. Backtick is over your tab key. You've probably never used it before, but if you press it, it does these little backticks. So you want to put two backticks, and then in between it is where you write your sentence. So I'm gonna start this off. So how you put variables in strings or in template strings is you use the following syntax: a money sign and curly braces. So the curly braces kind of like we use in functions, or we use a lot of curly braces in like CSS, right? So for template strings, we use the money sign, curly braces, and then you put the variable name in between that thing. So you say first name, I'm gonna say first name, and then I'm gonna say last name. So again, money sign, curly braces, and then we'll say is the owner of, and then in my other variable, money sign, curly braces, and we'll just put the variable name dojo in there, and I'll even put a period. So check that out, guys. Johnny Lawrence is the owner of Cobra Kai. So how simple is that? No pluses, no spaces, no remembering any of that nonsense. You're literally just writing plain English in between the backticks, and like I even put the period right after here, and it's fine. You're just writing plain English, and then you're just putting your variables in a money sign and curly brace little symbol. That's it. So how much nicer is that? Pretty awesome, huh? So like when I code new projects, if you're coding a brand new project today, you're not working for like a company that has this old legacy code, go ahead whenever you want to make a string and use template literals. They're way easier. So I would just use that. That's what I usually use now. So yeah, let's do one more example. And actually, let's just do a challenge, because I think the syntax is way easier, and this is pretty much all you need to know to do template literal. So I'll actually do a challenge for you. So let's go ahead and paste it here. So, oops, let me put all these down here. So you're going to make your own sentence with these variables. So let first name to Daniel, let last name to LaRusso, let dojo to Miyagi-Do Karate. So make a sentence with the variables below and log it to the console. The sentence should say, let's put quotes here, Daniel LaRusso is the owner of Miyagi-Do Karate. Okay, so pretty much just really similar to the sentence, but we'll just go to the other karate dojo. So again, hopefully you watch Cobra Kai. If you don't, even if you don't, just go ahead and make the sentence here. It's a good show though. You guys should watch it, or you should watch the Karate Kid. But so go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and try to do what I did up here with this sentence. If you have a lot of trouble with it, don't worry. Like always, we'll do it together here in just a few seconds. All right, have fun. All right, guys, hopefully that wasn't too difficult. Let's go ahead and log this out to the console together. So I'll say console.log, and I'll do my two backticks, and I'll say money sign, curly braces, and we'll say first name to, and money sign, curly braces, last name to, and we'll say is the owner of, and then money sign, curly braces, and this is dojo 2, and then we'll put a period, and save, and there it is. Daniel LaRusso is the owner of Miyagi-Do Karate. So again, guys, how much better is that? It's like a million times better making strings like that. So the last thing that I want to go over is something called string methods. And what string methods are is they're kind of like built-in functions for strings. And there's methods, these things called methods, which are, again, just an easy way to put it for a beginner. They're just like built-in functions in JavaScript. So we already did it. If you've been following the playlist, I showed you how to make your own functions. But all programming language, including JavaScript, have like little built-in functions that you can access. Usually using like a dot. It's called the dot operator. So yeah, we'll go over those. We're not gonna like go super in depth. I'll just show you a couple of them, and then I'll show you how to access them. But as you're building projects, there's going to be stuff that you need to do with strings, and you're not going to know how to accomplish it with JavaScript a lot of times because you can't just know everything. But that's where your research is going to come in as a web developer, and you'll end up going to Google and you'll type in like how to do such and such with JavaScript, and then usually you'll find the answer, and someone will be like, oh, you should use this method, and then it'll show you the code. Okay, so that's what a method is. It's just like a built-in function. And again, it's not just for strings. There's methods for numbers, and there's methods for arrays, which we're going to learn about. There's methods for all kinds of data types that you'll become familiar with as you build real projects, in the real world. And I'll just show you, let's just go to Google. I'll just show you, like, if we type in JS string methods, you can like get a list of them pretty easy. So right here in W3 schools, I'll make this big for a second. Here's some common basic string methods here. So it'll give you like a whole list, and then you can click on them and it'll give you the syntax and how to use them. Okay, so these are some basic string methods. So we have length, string, char at. So even we have these like we have our parentheses, and that kind of looks like a function, right? So this looks like a function, which, since we already learned functions, this shouldn't look too different, or it shouldn't look like super confusing, because like you can see like, oh, it's kind of like you're calling a function. Well, yeah, you are. You're pretty much calling a built-in function, and then you'll pass in a parameter here based on your string. All right. So I'll go ahead and go back to our file. And we'll just do a couple string methods, just so again, I just want you to know what methods are and what string methods are, and just know that they exist. So we'll say dot, or not dot, we'll do the to uppercase method. So to uppercase. And pretty much just like what it sounds, it'll transform your whole text into uppercase letters. So just to show you, say I'll say text1 equals, and we'll say hello world. Okay. And now we'll manipulate it with the to uppercase method. So we'll just log it to the console, say console.log. And we'll say text1, and then we'll say dot to uppercase, and then don't forget the parentheses on the end, and let's save it. And look, hello world. We logged it out, and it's all in uppercase. So that's pretty cool. So that could be useful if you have something, in your program that spits out some text, and you need to be all uppercase letters for whatever reason. You would use the to uppercase method. And then there's also, of course, there's to lowercase as well. So let's do to lowercase. And this is kind of like using, if you went through the CSS, if you're familiar with HTML and CSS, which you should be if you're taking JavaScript, this kind of makes sense. This is like the JavaScript way of styling text, right? It's not using CSS, using JavaScript. So let's say and we'll just say text2 equals to, and we'll use hello world again. Why not? Hello world. And then we'll say console.log, and we'll say text2 dot to lowercase and parentheses, save. There you go, hello world. And then there's another string method that is common that you'll probably use in real projects, and that's the length method. So let's say let alphabet equals, and we'll just put the whole alphabet in our strings. Okay. And then we can get the length. So we know the length of the alphabet, or at least of the English alphabet, it should be equal to 26 characters. So let's see if this will work. So we'll say console log alphabet dot, and then we'll use length dot length. Okay, and there it is, 26. So yes, gave us the length of the string, and that is something that you'll actually commonly be doing in JavaScript as well. Is you'll be using the length property to find out how many characters something is. So that's something that you'll actually use. And then just notice on the dot length property how this doesn't take parentheses. Okay, not all methods take parentheses to where you can put parameters in here. Some of them are just dot and then whatever the keyword is. So just be aware of that. When we do, like later on in this course, we're going to build projects and we'll be using all this stuff more practically. But again, you got to kind of know the basics before we dive into all that. So yeah, this is just the basics of string, guys. So remember, we went over how to create strings, double quotes, single quotes, how to escape characters when we need to. We learned the old kind of messier way of concatenating strings and joining them together. Then we learned the nice new modern way using template literals or template strings, the much better way. And then we went over built-in functions for strings called methods. So that's pretty much all you need to know for strings as a beginner. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.